Good afternoon, everyone. Happy February. Happy to have you on our weekly webinar. Looks like most of you are muted. If you're not, please take the time to mute yourselves. And if you'd like to have your camera on, we're always happy to see you. That is up to you. We are recording, so this will be available to watch after today. And if you need closed captioning, feel free to use the button at the bottom of the screen so that captions will be equipped for you. And as we visit today, please feel free to use the chat function if you have questions or comments for our speaker. And our speaker today is Ms. Michelle Median, licensed specialist in clinical social work. And she is the director of the Cognitive Care Network at the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. Michelle has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in social work from, of course, KU, where she also has taught social work practice. Michelle has a long history of caring for people, is the short version of her story. And a little bit more information is that she has special interest and work in geropsychiatric inpatient settings, as well as work at the Alzheimer's Association Heart of America chapter, where she was the director of education, programs, and public policy. She has been a mentor to me, both professionally and personally, and has been a guiding light for so many people on the journey of Alzheimer's disease. And we are super happy to have her on the webinar today. Today's topic is the visual guide to mood and behavior challenges, which Michelle, of course, is the author of, alongside a really excellent Cognitive Care Network team of social workers. And of course, you should all know that Michelle is the creator, director, producer, everythinger of the fantastic movie Why, that we've been promoting over the last year through the KU ADRC. She is the reason why it exists, and why we are able to do such great work here at the ADRC. And I see somebody who's using the clapping reaction in their screen. I agree. So that being said, the best way to hear who Michelle is to hear from her. So Michelle, with my gratitude, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you for being with us today.
Wow, thanks, Kelly. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me get it situated. There we go. We're going to talk about the mood and behavior guide, but I want to start with a couple of things. So we're concerned about people's needs throughout the disease course, from early clear to the end of the disease and in any of these cognitive disorders. It is a journey. There is quality of life. There can be good things and tough things. They're different to different stages. And so when we look at the mood and behavior guide, it is primarily focused on more middle stage issues. So as we go through this, and if you look at this, all my many friends who are in early stage, what I don't want to have happen is that we get terrified, because there's really a wonderful message with talking about mood and behavior issues, is that that is where the power is in terms of big changes. So when we think of behavioral or mood issues, there was a time where people thought it was inevitable. If I have Alzheimer's disease, perhaps they knew somebody, I'm going to become combative, I'm going to become mean to my family, I'm going to, do outrageous things or whatever it is. That was the stereotype years ago. And in fact, I have lots of people I talk with in early stage where that fear still exists. That fear does not need to be there. The whole point of the mood and behavior guide is to figure out another pathway. For all of our lives, our behavior is an expression of something. So it doesn't matter if we have dementia or not, if we get frustrated, that it is an expression of something that we are reacting to. So when someone in more middle stage, has these kind of what we consider responses, response behaviors, that our quest begins to be, how do we figure out the puzzle to make life better? So does any of this apply? Is there anything in the mood and behavior guide that's helpful to those individuals in early stage? Maybe a little bit, only in the sense that depression risk is higher. And sometimes our frustrations or some of our the anxiety, et cetera, are related to depression. So I'm not dismissing that any of it could be applicable, but the majority you're hearing me say are for those individuals more progressed in these middle and later stages. So the guide really becomes a mechanism to replace our assumptions, and let me say our flawed assumptions, that rough things are inevitable, with really a thought process. We're not going to react to a specific behavior or mood. It gives us some information, and then we need to think through this process of how to help. And in that way, it gives us some control. Why is this happening? What is the message? What is being expressed here? What can we change? The guide itself is a bullet point kind of thing. Here's some common mood and behavioral challenges. Here's some common reasons. Here's some common interventions. Because, there's not many of us that enjoy, well, there might be a few on the call. I'm looking at my friend Kelly Grace here. Most of us don't thoroughly enjoy reading all these textbooks. So it's not a textbook. It's not a book we're going to read also all kinds of academic things. For most of us, we're just, give me some tips and tricks. And so that was built around giving people some tricks and tips. And then it can be shared with others and facilitate what I consider therapeutic conversations. And that is true if you work in a healthcare setting, if you work in a long-term care setting, if you're a family member, even if you're someone diagnosed, if there's something you're saying that's applicable. Guess what? We all don't see things the exact same way. And there can be frustration. Sometimes there can be distancing that goes on with families. There can be conflict around interpretation. And it's good to have an objective tool to just open up those conversations. See, this is what I think is going on. And to open up those kind of conversations. There are 3 distinct sections to the guide. The first are common mood and behavioral challenges. So some of them are absolutely directed at depression and anxiety, the most common. And actually, most of the anxiety we see is related to anxious depression. And guess what? People don't tend to recognize depression. They see depression in a certain way, and sometimes they don't know they're depressed, or families don't see the person as depressed, when actually that's the big part of the picture. So some of the guide addresses those mood kind of issues. Irritability is among them. And again, irritability is often part of that depressive picture, can be other things. And then some of those common behavioral challenges. So that's the first section. It allows you to jump. So if you identify a certain behavior, then you can go to the next section. It will guide you to a page that then gives you contributors to the challenges. Now, make no mistake, it's not a complete list. All of you on this call would, if you looked at the pages, and you'll have a chance to, Kelly can put the link in the chat, and it's also included at the end of this PowerPoint. But you will look at the list and say, Michelle, what about this? What about this? And I love it when people do that. Because again, it's about the dialogue. We are unique people. The disease is laid down in the context of a human being with certain personality traits, strengths, certain resilience skills. There's lots of uniqueness. So when it allows us to continue to think about this one human being and what else might be contributing. And again, with this goal of how do we then react. So once we decide, gosh, these might be possible reasons for the challenges, then you can click on and go through to the interventions, and it will give you a list of possible things to try. So I always call that the tools in the toolbox. We all need them. There's going to be a bunch of stuff that doesn't apply to me. And then there's going to be some tools that do. And sometimes there's tools that work one day but don't work the next day. But then they do work again the next day. So, there's some variation in that. So we all need those tools in the toolbox. So the guide, we hope, gives the opportunity for a couple of things. Part of that is exploring possible considerations. Do we need to change the environment for some? And by that I mean, do we need to simplify the environment? Do we need more support? Are we communicating in a way that's actually adding to someone's anxiety? Is it a communication issue? Is it a depression kind of issue? Are we dealing with a lack of structure or boredom? For many of us, and I would put myself in this category, if I don't have anything to do for a period of time, and that even includes, the holidays where you're sitting around together and, you're spending all day and you're sitting visiting. If I don't physically move and do something, I myself get antsy. So, if I had Alzheimer's disease, that might escalate to a point. You might see that anxiety in a way where I couldn't sit still, where I might try to exit. I mean, in middle stage, those kind of things. So looking at that core, could it be boredom? Could it be lack of structure? Could it be lack of purpose? And then again, talking through issues not only with the family members but also care team and utilizing in care plans. And by that I mean sometimes that has to do with a conversation with psychiatry. Sometimes that has to do with conversation with informal or formal helpers. So if there are respite care companions in the home, or personal care assistants, or if someone lives in a long-term care facility, that those kind of tools could be looked at and included in a care plan. So we don't just automatically jump to, say, example, medication, but we look at the whole person, and medication is often only one piece, and we look at that fuller perspective. So if you are a healthcare professional, on this call. It can also validate your own assessment and concerns. And sometimes we give families too much information and it overwhelms them. And so copying and pasting a page or printing off a page, the mood and behavior guide does not have to be used in its entirety. There are some folks who just need one page. And that's why it's digitally available. Just print off that one page and share and talk about. It may be a way to advocate with other people on your care team. It also can explore what I call areas of denial. And I don't mean necessarily about the disease, but I do mean about action. There are situations where people in our support network, whether informal or formal, again, may believe that this is to be expected or accepted, and I don't accept it. If we see challenges, we have an obligation to that person diagnosed to do everything we can to reduce suffering and to increase quality of life. So when we see these tough experiences, part of our work is to figure out the why. So the tool can absolve what I consider some of the denial, and that's true with families too. Sometimes there are families who will say to me, gosh, they were always X. They were always rather hard to deal with, or they were always needy, or they were always anxious, or they were always a worrywart. I don't care what that always was. If the behavior is being shown, it is an expression. It does not relieve my mind that somebody was struggling in their earlier life and there wasn't an answer. That doesn't help me at all. That doesn't change the direction that we still need to figure it out. So just because someone was always something does not mean that we ignore it. It's still a message, it's still communication, it's still figuring out why, so we can walk alongside somebody to help improve life. And many times what people will say is they were always this, they were always a worrywart, but it's worse now. And so again, that question about, is it worse? So let's pay attention to the anxiety and let's address that. And then, in terms of working with families, lots of families out there would say, I don't know what to do to help. It's not that they're in denial. It's not that they're assuming that there's nothing they can do. They just don't know what to do. And so looking more methodically at these behavioral expressions as something we can do something about. We are none helpless in this disease process. And I want you all to hear me. We are not helpless and we are not hopeless. It is figuring out puzzle pieces, just as surely as people in early stage had to do that with diagnosis, had to do that with figuring out coping, had to figure out how to do that with changed routines. That's what we need to continue to do as the disease evolves. I do think that there's a advocacy piece here. So I see it that way, that it can be an expression of self-advocacy, and it can give families a language to ask the right questions. So even if certain things don't apply or do apply, it gives you the tools to ask the right questions. And sometimes that's all we need. We just need the questions. Sometimes it's tough to even know, what those questions might be. So in terms of the guide, let's see if we can pull it up. And for me, it's not happening.
Michelle, I have it up on my screen I can
Okay,
share.
I'm going to stop share
Okay,
and Kelly can pull it up. And let's just walk through it just a little bit.
okay. Coming just a moment. Okay, here we go. Share screen. Okay.
Yep. So it looks like this. And we begin, let's look at page 2. Again, it addresses the fact that we're whole people all the time, and that it is about individually assessing and looking at these behavioral expressions. Then it goes into the sections. If we want to go to page 4. So the first section is some dialogue. It is brief. It is simply conversation about general dementia. We all understand that every dementia has its own kind of mood and behavioral vulnerabilities. So it's just a very abbreviated conversation about that. And then it goes into the sections. So page 6 begins the section. Let's go to the next page. So these are common mood and behavioral challenges or expressions. Again, it is not completely inclusive. There are certainly others that are less common. These are fairly common. So we're just going to pick one. Say social withdrawal. So that's what we're seeing in the person that we love and are supporting. We see them withdrawing. So we go down under withdrawal. It shows page 23. So you can actually click on then page 23. And it gives you some thought process about what could be possibly some of the reasons. Sometimes it's related to progression in the frontal lobe, where initiation and motivation lie. So sometimes they just can't get started, but if we have a structure and involve them, they will be more involved and engaged. Sometimes it's because we have an absence of what I call initiators. So we need friends and companions to reach out and visit and to have schedules. So when we don't have those initiators, then some of that withdrawal can occur. Sometimes it's about performance anxiety. I just get so anxious being around people because maybe I'll forget a word, maybe I'll feel like I'm embarrassed, maybe I won't know exactly what to do. So out of that performance anxiety, I step back. Depression can cause it. People talking too fast around them, being in a group setting, and talking too fast. They have some things to say, but they can't quite find the time to jump in. By the time they jump in, the conversation has moved. And so these are all possible reasons, and again, others. Say we look at that and we think it's inability to keep up with pace of conversation. So this is where we go to, well, how are we going to change this? So we're going to go, in this case, we're going to click on page 56. So 56, then the next section gives us some ideas. So if in a large group and the individual is distancing from the group, encourage others to go over and talk one at a time. So say this is at Thanksgiving and there's a ton of people there and the person's sitting in the corner. Then encourage people to go over and have one-to-one conversation. If you are in a setting where there's, you're sitting around watching a movie or having dinner and there's 6 people at the table, actively include them So introduce the individual's opinion when known and ask for confirmation. Bob, you used to know a lot of, talk a lot about lavender. That's one of your favorites, isn't it? Or just include them in whatever. Uh, you know, uh, if there's a specific hobby or etc. So I've used a couple of examples here. Really limiting the number of people in the group, if possible, is a viable. Invite one couple over instead of three couples going out to dinner. And instead of all the grandkids coming over and getting overwhelmed, just have one grandkid at a time come over for visit, so there can be some specialness to it. It could be, when we're limiting number, it could even be going to restaurants at an off time when it's quieter, where the larger group is more confined. Sometimes it's just making sure the individual is seated by someone who's aware of the dementia that they can talk to, so they don't feel left out in some way. And I have lots of friends walking through this disease where there's kind of a point where that's all they can really do. And, we as care partners, we can get really attuned to, gosh, this is their limit. Now, I want care partners to stay and visit some of the time. So some of the time it's somebody else taking them home and staying with them, so the care partner can stay in that social environment. But sometimes it's the care partner and the person leaving. An example of this, I have a friend who absolutely loves to go to church. Church has been a real mainstay. And in that particular church setting, everybody congregates in the narthex and visits after church. That's what they have always done. And, these people were in the church for a long, long time. And my friend who has Alzheimer's disease, she can only tolerate that so much. So they can visit in the narthex, but her husband is looking at the 10-minute rule. 10 minutes and they're going to go home. So they get a little bit of socialization, but they haven't overstretched. And then simply, slow down the pace of the conversation. So this is just an example of how the tool can be used. Again, you guys would say, Michelle, you need to add this, this, and this. And I love it when people tell me that, because the more we share together and give each other ideas, it's an unlimited number. So that is the ticket. I know we're out of time. I don't know if there's any questions. And if not, if I don't see any questions in the chat, Kelly, any final thoughts?
Thank you, first of all, for sharing this great resource, Michelle. There's certainly some kudos in the chat, Michelle, so I hope that you will take a look at those. And I will remind everybody that next Thursday, February 8th, we will be demonstrating using the app. So if you're available to join and have your smartphone ready, whether it's Apple or Android or Google Play or one of the many options. And we're going to have Rosie Pasqualini, who many of you know, demonstrate how to actually use the app. So that session will focus a bit more on how to navigate through the app. And I think you'll find it quite helpful. And then if you have questions that are more focused on the behaviors and the moods themselves, you can certainly pass those through my alliance, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say Michelle will be happy to answer those for you. So if you do, she's nodding, so very good. Feel free to be in touch with us, and then come back next Thursday and we'll do a demonstration. We will also have some technical support from one of our IT folks so that we can give you the really great details about how to use this app. So it's coming. We're going to have more details in the Monday My Alliance newsletter. And if there's anybody out there who is a Spanish speaker, if you know someone who is a Spanish speaker, this app is also going to be available, and the guide will be available in Spanish, which we're very excited about. So with that
Kelly,
being
it's
said,
only an app. It's not a hard copy that we can get.
Yeah,
I
I
love
was
that,
just
Michelle.
gonna, yeah, I was just gonna add that. I had forgotten to say that. We have a supply of hard copy. We do not have an unlimited number of hard copy. But for folks where that's really important, let us know. We don't have a mechanism necessarily to mail, but if you're you're headed to the memory clinic, you're going to be in or in the area, we can make arrangements for you to pick it up. And if there's some circumstance in which it really has to be mailed, we can figure that out. But let us know if that be a need, and we can make that available.
Okay. Question in the app or in the chat. I think everybody is curious about if you can't wait till Monday. You want to try to download the app now, go to the app store on your device, whatever kind you have, and search for Dementia Care Assist. There's not a space between care and assist. And it should come right up. It's kind of a blue puzzle piece with a heart on it, and it will say something about the University of Kansas. So you will know you are in the right place. You do not have to pay any money whatsoever to download or use the app. So if you see something that looks like that, you're in the wrong place. Okay. But we'll have some details in My Alliance on Monday. We'll have the webinar on Thursday. Again, if you can't wait, feel free to send me an email at myalliance@kumc.edu, and I'll do my best to help you with that. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Happy February. Thank you, Michelle. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday. Take care. Bye-bye.